Okay.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of An Audience Booked By. And it really does give me huge pleasure. I know I say this every time, but genuinely it does give me huge pleasure to welcome today Jenny O'Brien, who's not only a writer, although she might argue with that and call herself a nurse first, mum of three, and although born in Dublin and moved to Wales, now resides in Guernsey. So it's a real thrill to welcome you today, Jenny.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Tracy. I'm just pleased to be here, pleased to be invited.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we had a bit of a chat the other day just to get to know each other a bit. And there are so many things that are interesting about you. I honestly don't know where to begin. But I suppose the best place, as always, is the beginning.
Okay.
And to say to you, you are a nurse first and foremost.
Yeah.
So how did the writing come about?
I think, like most people, I always felt I wanted to write a book, but that was a bit of a pipe dream. I went into nursing when I was 17, and I'm in my 40th year now on the wards. So about I have twins. I have three children, a 20-year-old, and then the twins are 17 now. When the twins were one, I changed jobs and I went to a rehab unit. And obviously, busy working mom, I didn't have any time. And I had this coffee break in my mornings. I used to mirror the kids being at preschool, etc. I think they're about nearly two, actually. They're at preschool anyway. And I was just sitting there doing nothing. So I thought, all right, let's write a book. So in my scrub pocket, nurses always carry notebooks around. Yeah, as you do. Nurses always carry notebooks around. So I had a notebook in my scrub pocket. It's normally for drug calculations, that sort of thing. So I started at the back and I started writing a little book for children called, well, it was eventually called Boy Brainy. I was bullied as a child, and I had some things I wanted to say about that, and about self-esteem. And it's not about the person being bullied. It's, you are who you are, and you just have to accept that and live with yourself as to the way you look, the way you behave, because the only person actually you are with the whole of your life is yourself. So anyway, I had that story in my mind, and I wrote it in my coffee breaks, typed it up late at night, and that's how it started. I enjoyed writing. It fitted in with my lifestyle, which was very busy then. I could write in the car park while I was waiting for the kids. Writing is just so easy. All you need is a notebook and pencil, and you just carry it around in your handbag, your car. It's a very mobile hobby. So after writing that children's book, I carried on writing, turned to romances. I hadn't published at all at that stage. I thought I'd try and get an agent and then a publishing deal, and nobody was interested in me. So I just carried on writing for about 5 years. And then
how did it come about then how did you publish this book? What influenced you, or who influenced you? Was there somebody else alongside?
Yeah, like most writers, I wanted a publishing contract. I just thought that was the gold standard. And I didn't want to be viewed as vanity published. I didn't want to go down the self-publishing road. And then Valerie Keogh, who's a fellow Irish nurse and writer, and she's a great friend of mine. Hi, Valerie, if you're watching. She persuaded me to self-publish. So I published Boy Brainy first. There was a bit of a bullying incident at school with one of my children, and his teeth were damaged. And that night, with Valerie's encouragement, I self-published on Amazon, and just instead of having a posh, book launch or anything like that, I was quite upset that day. So I went in the garden and murdered some weeds. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell a soul that I'd self-published Boy Brainy. I just did it for me. And then I self-published some romances after that.
You published this children's book.
Yeah.
You didn't advertise it. You just put it out on, I'm guessing, Amazon.
I put it on Amazon, and I put it for free because, for me, I didn't want to make money from a book that might help youngsters accept themselves as they are with regards to self-esteem if they're being bullied. It's basically about two boys, 11-year-olds. One is Black and one is autistic. And they're not very popular living in Wales, and I just wanted people to, accept themselves for who they are, really. And then, there's lots of people who like to interfere in our lives, lots of bullies out there, and we need to be above that, really. And
so
that's
it
something
came
that
from
children need
a
to learn.
real personal place for you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how that was born, really, because of your own
Because of my
experiences as
history.
a child, and then no parent likes to see their own
No.
child going through it. It's awful. It's and I don't know about you, but honestly, I think things are getting worse rather than better at the moment. So I applaud you for taking your own pain and turning it into something that might actually benefit others. So how did that book go down in terms of no advertising? You just put it out there.
Yeah, it's always #1 on Amazon, free in King Arthur Legends.
So it's still free. It's still free to
it's
people.
Still free. Yeah, I don't want any money for it, and I do get some nice reviews from people. So I've no intention of getting any money from it. And then it does have a follow-up, which is called Granny's Gone Missing in Guernsey, which follows the same two lads. And that I actually, it sounds as if I'm, this brilliant person. I'm not, but I donated that to a local children's cancer charity over here, because my twins were in class with a little lad who actually died of leukemia, and the mum, very brave lady, set up a charity afterwards to help support other children and parents going through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the book, and then I gifted it to them, so they've got life enjoyment of it to do with what they want. So that's my children's side, is non-profit making. I'm happy with that.
Well, absolutely, and it's such a great foundation. So what came next? So you did this first book out of a need, I suppose, for your own need to express how you felt about bullying. You did the next book, which was to help local community.
Yeah.
What happened then?
So Valerie Keogh is a crime writer, and she
said I just want to say to anybody who's checking in, Valerie Keogh, oh my goodness, this woman is an absolute firecracker. I interviewed her in season 1, so do check her out, because her books are definitely worth your time. But she's also been a great supporter of writers as well, and we'll come to that a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But yes, carry on.
She's just such a sophisticated person. I want to be Valerie when I grow up.
I think we'd all like to be Valerie when we grow up. Yes.
So she turned me to crime. She said, "Jen, come on, write a thriller." So I wrote The Stepsister.
She turned you to crime.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, Stepsister, which is part set in Guernsey, part set in Holland. I went on a school visit to Holland when I was about 16, and I fell in love with the paintings there. And so I set this crime thriller around the art world. And again, with me, I got it professionally edited and a nice cover, but I didn't advertise it. I stuck it on Amazon, and I just crossed my fingers and carried on with my nursing. And for 5 weeks, it was in the top 100 of psychological thrillers on Amazon. It did really well.
Just like that, without any advertising at all.
I didn't pay for anything, no advertising, no. It was on Kindle Unlimited, but I just did that. And so she said, well, write a police procedural. So yeah, it's great. Valerie directs my career. I decided to write a book. I know. I've decided to write a book called Missing in Wales. And as I said to you earlier, I'm no good at picking titles. So the next in series was called Stabbed in Wales. So it says what happens in the tin. And so Missing in Wales, when it was published, I decided to do a bit of advertising, and I got a BookBub deal when everybody told me that I wouldn't get a BookBub deal, and it takes ages to get one. And first attempt, I got a BookBub deal, which is quite expensive.
Can I just ask you to clarify for anybody listening?
BookBub. It's a big publishing conglomerate, I suppose, in America, and it's the gold standard for advertising. It cost me about £700 for one day. I put Missing in Wales up for free. I don't mind giving away free books for advertising, and obviously I do it for Boy Brainy. And I gave away 43,000 copies, which
Oh my goodness.
kills me.
Oh
one
my
day,
goodness. But
I
yeah,
know,
okay,
well,
we live and
yeah.
learn.
So for one day, it was #1 free on Amazon UK and .com. And at the same time, I thought I'd be clever. And I sent it out to some publishing houses because they do check the charts. And it landed on the editorial director of HQ Digital, which is an imprint of Harper Collins, a lovely lady called Abby Fenton. She said to her team, read that book, because she'd seen it was #1. And 2 weeks later, she offered me a 3-book contract.
So I mean, I have to just interject again to say, surely that is karma for all the giving that, you know, yes, 43,000 copies. I feel your pain on that, but it led you to the door of
It led me to the book deal. So and then one book 3, which is called Fallen Angel.
Oh, I can see that behind
launched.
you, Jenny, on the shelf. Is that right? Yeah.
When that was published, she offered me another 3-book deal. So
wow.
That's me so far.
You so far. Oh, just yeah, you know. But meanwhile, because let's just remind ourselves and the viewers, this is something you do when you're not nursing. And when we were talking, you said that actually, despite doing very well in the psychological thriller market, you don't actually read much in the way of psychological thrillers.
I try not to. I do read some. There's some really good. Well, I read everything that Valerie Cure writes, and that's not because she's a friend. She's actually a really sophisticated writer. There's Jane Bettany. There's Claire Chase, who writes for Bookshare, who's very good. And I do read random odds and sods, but I prefer reading romance, which I know is odd. But I know if I'm reading a romance, I'm not going to borrow ideas from other crime writers. And people do say that my writing is original. The stories that I come up with are original. And part of that is because I don't read that many other crime writers. I try not to. And I don't watch television at all. So I'm not influenced by any of these crime series on telly because I don't really watch them. I say I don't watch telly. I do occasionally. We've been watching that. There was a French series. Can't remember the name, crime series. So I watch it, the occasional thing, but my kids and my husband are watching Squid Games at the minute, and I'm not going to watch that. So I'm not watching telly at all at the moment.
In fact, you even admitted to me that you didn't know how to use the remote control because you really
television
don't.
on.
Yeah.
No, I haven't turned the television on myself for 2 years.
That's incredible.
There was a movie I wanted to watch about 2 years ago, and I asked one of the kids to set it up for me. And then I watched it, and then I turned off the telly, and I haven't turned it on since. I dust it occasionally, but that's about as far as it goes.
Well, I was just going, you know, that brings us back round to where do the ideas for your writing come from? I mean, I would assume from your medical background that you're pretty good at twists when it comes to anything.
There's usually a medical.
Yeah.
There's usually a medical twist. There's, you know, in each of my books, there's usually something medical going on because that's just easy for me. I don't have to do any research because I know all that stuff. Can't get my words out. From speaking to people, I book 1, so Silent Cry, it's called now, it was called Missing in Wales. That was from a dream I had, which is it's lovely when a book story unfolds from a dream because that's just cheap and easy. From chatting to my daughter, 17-year-old, we chat through plots and I ask her what she thinks and she'll put her input in. I listen to Radio 4 when I'm in the car, so that burbles in the background, and sometimes that will bring me off on a tangent. They have some really good interviews about the most amazing random stuff you can ever imagine. So I was listening to an interview yesterday about something which I'm not going to say about, but in my mind I might think about using a bit of that in a book at some point. I've just filed it away. I'd have to research it first, but yeah, so that's non-fiction stuff on Radio 4. Reading the newspapers.
So you draw from life.
From life.
Obviously, you are a voracious reader. I know that you read, because you said, was it last year you read 170?
I did the Goodreads challenge and I kept having to increase it, so but it was quite annoying. If I didn't read so much, I'd write more. But so one of the books, it's book 6 in the series, which I've just sent in to my editor, was I was dropping my daughter over at a sleepover about a year ago, and the day before my editor had said, right, I'm going to offer you 3 more books, but we need to have 3 plots. And I had 2. I didn't have a third one, and I was scrubbing around in my brain for a third plot, and I had nothing to give her. So I was dropping her off at a sleepover, and I knew that lady and the daughter that I was dropping her off to, but I was driving away and I looked in my rear view mirror, as every parent does when they've dropped their child off, just to double check they're going where they say they are. And I thought, what if when I go to pick her up tomorrow, she's not there? But not only is she not there, does the woman who owns the house doesn't know her and doesn't have any children living at the property? And that is book 6.
Excuse me, I just sorry though, a bit of tickle in my throat, a little bit. I think we're both suffering a bit at the moment, but yeah, I mean, isn't it amazing how these things can just come to you?
Yeah,
you know, from a journey, from speaking to people, to just being actively aware of what's going on around you, but allowing your imagination to just drift with that.
Just take it one step further. It's basically, what if you see something and it might be something really nice, but you think, what if this happens? And I suppose nursing comes into it because, there's a darker side to life, and it's not all nurses going around in scrubs giving people out meals and tablets, and there's lots of dark things that happen. And I wouldn't write about anything in real life that's happened to me in nursing, but you get that, I suppose, mentality where that not everybody has the perfect life, and I don't think anybody has the perfect life. And it's just, as a crime writer, you take that one step further. You push it. Really.
I would imagine that I have worked for many years in customer service, and I found that hugely beneficial, from being able to see the many sides of life. No matter what it is that you're selling, it's the people that come in and they want to tell you about themselves and the transaction that goes on between you. And it is a window on life. And I imagine that a hospital is very similar, but goes much deeper into the humanity of life. Because of the people that come through the doors.
Yeah. You're dealing with emotions. I was walking down the corridor last week in work, just hospital corridor. I was going somewhere, A to B, and there was this woman standing in the corridor, and she was in tears. She was just obviously in fuzzy tears. I didn't know her. I didn't know why she was crying. So I just stopped on my way, nipped into one of the wards, got a bundle of tissues, and then just carried on my journey, but handed her the tissues and said, there you go, and then walked away, because there was nothing I could do for her except, show her that what I did. But because she wouldn't have wanted me. She was on the phone to somebody, but that's what it's about. You see life in its, I don't know, in all its guises, I suppose. You see the happiness in midwifery, but you see lots of sadness as well. So
I think you're right as well. If when we're touched by the emotional, if we take a moment to acknowledge that, whether it's in ourselves or in somebody else, and it's about engaging with that, not always on a deep level, because, like you say, it may not be appreciated, but the fact that you saw her, you went to get the tissues, that to her might have meant a great deal. And we don't know what she was talking about on the phone, but straight away there's a possible plot idea that could spring.
Oh no, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't use that as anything.
No,
but that's,
not to use that person, but it's something. It's the moment itself, which perhaps for a writer can be filed away.
Yeah.
And not directed at that person's pain. Obviously, we're not here to exploit people's pain.
No.
But in terms of going about your business, getting on with things, noticing things, the kernel of something might at some point for you come later, much later on. Even
I think
if it's just a telephone conversation.
nail on the head there. Nurses observe.
Yeah.
No. You've hit the nail on the head in that saying that about observing. Nurses are great observers. You know, you walk on a ward, if you're in charge of the ward for that day, the first thing you do as a nurse will be walk around all your patients and just eyeball them, you know, hello, how are you? And walk on to the next one. But in that 2 seconds of your day, you've noticed a huge amount. It's been observant about, you know, how they are, their position, their mood, you know, whether they're responding to you, whether they're not, whether they've got a full glass, whether they've got a full jug of water in front of them, or whether it's empty and they've drunk it. So you know if it's a full jug, they haven't drunk it. All those sorts of things. You just, you have to just, you know, scan everything and just be aware and then act on it.
Now, I noticed that you said Jenny as well, and I think this plays an important part, particularly in today's society where there is at last, you know, notice is started to be taken about the plight of women's safety, for example.
Yeah.
And that, you know, maybe not necessarily every murder mystery needs to be about a woman being killed. So there's that whole conversation going on.
Yeah.
And you did say there are certain things that you will not write about, and that's because you've seen so much of life within the hospital medical environment.
Yeah, there are certain things I don't want to touch on. I just don't want to be another writer who just talks about abuse against women, paedophilia. I won't ever touch on about the underworld because it's not particularly something that interests me. So you're not going to get a gritty crime drama set in Newcastle or Liverpool or Nottingham about, you know, I don't know, drugs, that sort of thing. I'm not that kind of writer. You're going to get something a bit different. And I try to respect women in my writing. Not all my murderers will be men, which means some of them are going to be women. And I think, like most people, we have been touched by recent events, and I'm very aware of that. And that's reflected in what I'm writing about currently, although I don't really want to touch on it too much. Yeah, it's
but it is certainly a conversation that I think is well overdue within the public psych, isn't it? You know, and I think writers are very conscious of that, and there has been a shift perhaps in the way that particularly psychological thriller crime writers approach their work, because you know, if we're in a business of life reflecting art, reflecting life, then I think there is a responsibility to be aware of, you know.
Writers write what they want and what they're feeling at the time, but they do, I think, have to take on board what's happening around them.
Absolutely. So just thank you for that. Thank you for your candor on that. Coming back to the writing process, I know I asked you the question when we chatted before. So Jenny, you know, what do you do? Do you make a A4 plan? Do you do an outline? Or I suppose the term is, are you a planner or a pantster? And your response, which made me smile.
So I've said before, as much as I love Abby Fenton, my editor, and then Drucy Horsey, who took over from her for a little while she was on maternity leave, I'm sure they both, I'm sure I'm not their favourite writer, let's put it that way, because when they ask me for a synopsis, they don't get one, they get one line, because I don't know what I'm going to write when I write it. I start with a blank page and there is nothing, there is no notes, there's no character, but you know, there's lots of ways writers do it. They write a character, they write a list, eye color, shoe size, who their granny is, where they were brought up. I don't do any of that. What I do is in my headers on my Word document, I will keep a note as I write about key characteristics, and that's a tip for writers. It keeps on the top of every page, you'll know not their shoe size, but their age, their hair color, their character names, if you've got lots of characters, who's married to who, etc. And I add them in as I go, and I just carry on from there. When I've written about a third, I have more of an idea of where the story is going, and I can plot some chapters. But again, I'll do it on the Word document, and I'll just put chapter, and then underneath will be a line as to how I'm going to plot it. And then about 80% through, I'll stop writing the first draft, and I will go back to the beginning of the story. I'll have popped it on my Kindle, take it to bed with me, read the story, and only then do I plot the end. So then is when I finally decide who the killer will be. And then I will have to go back and check my foreshadowing to see if I've got enough to keep the eager, determined Agatha Christie style sleuth reader happy. Because there's no point in introducing a character right at the end.
No.
And yeah, so second drafts for me are an absolute nightmare. I don't recommend other people write the way I do, but it's the only way I can write. So that's the way it is.
And it seems to be working for you. So
yes,
so why fix it? Yeah, absolutely. And it also, we talking about sort of chapter by chapter, and through the genres as well that you have written. So going back to Boy Brainy, you started with that, it was from the heart, but you built on that into romance, you built on it again, and you likened that to the exposure you had to injuries at work,
Oh, yes. Yeah, it
which
was,
I thought was really interesting, actually. Maybe you wanted to say something.
yeah, so basically, as you start as a junior nurse, you go on the wards and you're protected, you have a mentor, and the mentor protects you from the most horrific of things, because obviously you might be 17, 18, you're young, inexperienced, and she'll or he will say to you, come and have a look at this dressing, and it'll be maybe somebody's finger, and you'll think, ew. But then a month later, they'll say, well, come and help me with this dressing. The man's had an amputation. And you think, oh my goodness. But then a month later, they will say, come and help me with this. We've got a gunshot wound in. And you'll think, oh my goodness, how am I going to cope with this? But you've layered it up, and you've seen the sore finger, and you've known that you've been able to cope with that. You've seen the amputated leg, you've been able to cope with that. So you've got those layers of experience that you build on. And it's the same with writing. I think when you start off writing, you can't expect to write a perfect book. You have to learn. And every writer will say that they're a writer in progress, I suppose. They're just building on their writing, and they improve over time. I suppose that's why when I started on this journey, I wouldn't have, although I was disappointed at the time getting all these rejection letters. I have so many rejection letters, I could actually paper my downstairs loo, but I've decided not to. I probably deserve them all, because my writing probably wasn't that good, but it has improved over time. So
I mean, that's if that's not encouragement to people who are trying to move their writing forward, I don't know what would be, to be fair. You just made me laugh then about the rejection letters, because I know another writer, is Joanne Harris actually, who puts her rejection letters into the cat litter tray, which is where she thinks they should belong. That made me smile. So just coming back then, you live in Guernsey, beautiful Guernsey, and you like to go swimming in the sea. Is that right? Do you free swimming?
Every day when I'm not at work, you'll find me swimming at about 9 o'clock. We have a group of friends, age ranging from, I'm probably the youngest, to about 85. And then afterwards we go for a cup of tea and a chat. Rain, hail, shine, September, August, December, January, February, March, in our bathing suits, no wetsuits, no fancy dry robes, just we go for a swim and a chat, and we'll be in the pool and it'll be blowing a hoolie, and we'll be 6 or 7 women and men just floating around, having a chat, middle of winter, and people think we're mad. But it's good for us.
Yeah.
And we enjoy it. It gives us a buzz. I was in this morning. That's why I was nearly late. And then my laptop wouldn't behave and it wouldn't switch on. And
Always
I was a bit
the way.
frustrated. But
Always
there
the
we
way.
go.
I'm just
It's
gonna.
still wet.
I'm keeping an eye on the time. I think
Okay.
we do need to kind of think about closing now. But I just want to come back to naughty Valerie, naughty lovely Valerie, because I know that you met her in the online website, which was Women's Writers, Women's Books, which I also
Yeah.
belong to. And I'm going to put that link in the bio with a link to your
Okay.
page for anybody who's interested in buying your books, because I think
Thank you.
that's been an enormous influence on. I remember when I joined Women's Writers, there were about 2,000 members, and I know the membership now is absolutely skyrocketed. They have a magazine, they're very prevalent on Twitter, influential under Barbara Boss's fantastic
Very
stewardship, I have to say. Yeah, Barbara Boss. So a shout out to Barbara there. But you also have very healthy competition with Val, don't you?
We have a daily word count. A daily word count. So yesterday, I was doing quite well yesterday. She'd gone out for coffee with a friend, and I said 800 words. I messaged her, and she came back to me an hour later, 10. And then about an hour later, I said, I'm up to 1,500, and she came back, 25.
Yeah, but it's good to have somebody that you can connect with. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, got almost to the end without flutter. It's good to have a writing buddy. It's good to have a supportive community. They are out there for people. You can find them, or you can create your own if you can't find them. If you are looking for some kind of support within your writing, there are always places. But I will put the link in for women's writers. And if you're a man, there are still plenty of places that you can go to get support for your huge amount. So I'm sorry to wrap it up, really, because we could carry on and on. It's just so lovely to talk to you. You're so bubbly. Between nursing, writing, and sea swimming, and your kids, I mean, I think you've pretty much covered mind, body, and spirit there. The healthy way to be.
I've got to go and hang the washing on the line now. That's the next job.
and there we are. We're back to reality. So I just want to thank you again, Jenny, for joining us here on An Audience Booked By. It really has been a treat to talk to you.
Thank you.
Really
I hope they find it useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to.
And people can get in touch. I'm on Twitter. People can get in touch. I'm on Twitter, ScribblerJB. Just drop me a message if you want. It's fine.
There you go. Okay. And I'm sure that people will. And I hope that they do, because it's good to connect with people. Yeah. Especially those who are trying to find their way in. So I've just got time to say that my next guest will be the prize-winning novelist, Nicola Monaghan, who also writes as Nicola Valentine. And somehow also finds time to teach creative writing at De Montfort Hall University, as well as having many more strings to her bow. But more important than that, she was born in my hometown of Nottingham, born and bred, and we actually worked together briefly when we were slightly younger than we are now. So I'm looking forward to talking to Nicola. But for today, my thanks again to Jenny, and for all of you who joined us. Take care, and we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you.